Hey, it's Troy with ATV Racing. I'm in the garage today and I'm super excited because I finally get to show you my T56 Magnum oil pump mount bracket kit that I've been talking about. So I'm finally ready to sell it, and I'm going to show you today what comes in the kit, some of the materials that I selected, and if you're interested, I'm going to show you my hose routing and the parts that I use to accomplish that. Okay, so in the kit, you're going to get a document with some installation tips and a quick little inventory of all the parts that I use to accomplish my hose routing. You're going to get a clamp, you're going to get 2 bags of hardware, and the actual plate itself. Now the plate is 1/4 inch thick 6061 T6. Now we all know times are hard with materials, so I have 2 different selected materials that my supplier will provide. It'll either be 5052 or 5086, but 6061 T6 is my preferred material. All 3 are weldable, so you can modify if you need to, change something down the line, but it's 1/4 inch thick. Should never break unless you do something. Don't know what you can do with it, but other than that, that's it. I've chamfered all the edges, the holes, no sharp edges at all, and it's sanded down to a 220 grit. If you wanted to, for whatever reason, you can continue sanding it down and polish it to a nice polished finish, or you can get it powder coated. If you get it powder coated, just be a little mindful of the holes. You'll probably have to rebore them out after powder coating because powder coating is thick, and this is pretty close tolerance, especially on the bolt holes. So the 2 bags of hardware. In those bags of hardware, you'll get a bracket. Now the bracket goes into or over the clamp. And then you'll get 2 little pieces of hardware for that. And now there's 2 washers, 1 nut. You don't have to use both washers, and I'll show you that here in a second. But 1 washer is all you need. I added 2 in case you wanted 2 washers. You also get your actual mounting bracket bolts. They are different sizes. One is a smaller size and one is your larger size. In the mounting bracket, this one is the smaller one, and that one is the larger one. And I'll show you that on the transmission. You cannot mess it up. So I already have mine mounted. Don't mind the socket head screws or hardware here. You'll get button head for a little sleeker look. So when I was talking about the 2 washers, you can see here how the hardware is touching the actual pump right here. If you only use 1 washer, it won't touch. There's no problem. It's not putting pressure on there. It's just barely touching. So I included 2 in case you wanted to. So I also forgot to mention, you get your 2 little rubber isolator pads right here. That comes in that bag as well. So you can see those against the actual bracket itself. So little rubber isolators. A couple of quick things that I do want to mention is on the pump, as the Tilton instructions show, these ports are 3/8 NPT. So I chose 6 AN. Tilton says that if you want max flow, you can use 8. They recommend 8 AN. 3/8 NPT correlates to 6 AN. So I chose 6 AN. It's cheaper, smaller, better to work with, but you can use 8 AN as well. No big deal. So on the top or outlet port, it's 3/8 NPT to, I'm using a 6 AN, both male, right? So that's NPT, so just make sure you seal that. The main part that I want to talk about is the bottom. So I highly recommend not using an adapter like this to put in the lower fitting and then a typical 90-degree fitting to go to this 6 AN piece right here that my thumb is touching. I recommend using an NPT to 90 degrees 6 AN, or if you're using 8 AN, adapter directly in the body of the pump. So I use this smooth flow one. The supplier or the seller on eBay, I've included that in the notes page. You could also just use a regular standard 90-degree style. The point is that it's 3/8 NPT to go directly into the bore of the pump, straight out to your 90 degree. If you use an adapter, you're going to lose ground to fitting clearance. It'll stick out to like right here. And if you remove your transmission and sit it on the ground, you have a higher chance of breaking this off or damaging this. You don't want to do that. So I highly recommend you put an adapter that goes directly into the pump body like I'm showing here. So either one will work. They both give you good fitting or good clearance. Okay, so coming over to my transmission, I want to acknowledge it right away is that I have a T56 Magnum built by RPM Transmissions. And what they did for me is use a 0304 Cobra style tail shaft housing. So what this does for me is allow me, one, to use 0304 Cobra drive shaft lengths, and two, the big one, my shifter. I use a standard 0304 Cobra style shifter base. A typical Magnum has a longer shifter base that goes from here. And now with the trans installed, you cannot remove that and add your fluid. I can. So the reason why that's important to note is that with this bracket, you can't access the fill plug because it's going to cover it. So you have to fill your transmission via the fill plug, following the proper procedure prior to adding a pump, or you just leave it loose with the transmission installed. You follow the procedure and then you let it hang a little bit and then you go ahead and add your fluid. At the end of this video, I'm going to talk about how much additional fluid you have to add to account for the addition of the pump and the lines. It's not much. So going back to the installation of this, like I said, you cannot mess it up. The forward hole, this mount hole, is your smaller bolt. The most rear mounting hole is your larger bolt. You cannot mess this up. All right. So you could put the bracket on the bottom like this if for whatever reason you needed the clearance on the top. But what you do here, what you lose, is that ground to fitting clearance. So I added provisions right here so you can put the bracket on top like so. So it clears the rip on T56 Magnums. So it only goes on one way. That hole right there is going to provide you enough room to get your fitting in there. So once you install your clamp, you just slide the body of your pump in this clamp. The holes are already there. You can't mess it up. And then you just line up your hole to have it centered. Mine is technically not centered right now, but I could just loosen this up, slide it back and forward a little bit, and get it to be perfectly in the middle of this hole. Boom, done. So then you put your hardware on, you connect it, and you finish your hose routing however you're going to do it. Add your wires, your power ground, and installation complete. That's all you need to do. So if you bought this from me, hey, thanks a lot for supporting me. I appreciate it. All the parts are going, or all the money is going to my hoopty, my project car here, my 03 Cobra. And thanks. Okay, so if you're still here now, you're interested in how I routed my car and the parts that I used. So if you're running a Magnum that doesn't have the additional bungs welded on, or if you don't have that really nice thick performance billet front half that has the sprayer port right here, this fitting comes factory. You can pull this off. I talked about it in another video. You can check my videos where I kind of talk about the sprayer options. This guy is a 6AN ORB male to a 6AN male fitting right here. Your next one, your actual pickup, is on the passenger side. And this guy is a 3/8 NPT male to 6AN. Remember, if you use an 8AN, same parts, just make it 8AN for where I'm saying 6AN. All right, so that is your drain, 3/8 NPT to 6AN male. I used a 90-degree 6AN fitting here. I used a 60-degree 6AN fitting here. I have my Earl's mesh, I think it's like an 80 micron mesh filter This is just an open cavity with a small little mesh screen in there. It's nothing fancy. I'm using a Stifler's mount, and this is the main reason why I did not want to provide a kit with all the lines and stuff like that, because if you drill this mount in a different spot, drill this hole in a different spot, your lines will be different. And if you don't use a Stifler's mount, it'll be different. This is why I don't do a full kit. It's too many variances. Anyway, I just drilled a little hole right here through my Stifler's mount in the back, like a 1/4 inch through. And then I use what I'm calling a standoff. So that standoff just looks like this, just a little standoff. I'm using a smaller one. I think it's like a 1/4 inch or something like that. I'd recommend probably one that's like a 1/2 inch, because it'll give you a little bit more clearance from your mounts right here. Again, if you're using a Stifler's mount. So a standoff to a P-clamp, and once you connect this, I think one standoff, one P-clamp is good enough, because it provides the rigidity once the lines are secure. So coming back to the other side here, so I used a 40-degree 6AN fitting here, small run of hose, and then just a straight 6AN female fitting to my pump's inlet. Remember, that's the 3/8 MPT to 6AN 90-degree. Then that's just your 3/8 MPT to 6AN adapter straight into the body of the pump's outlet. And then from here, I'm just using a 90-degree 6AN fitting to my hose, and then another 90-degree 6AN fitting. So it goes just like that. Oh. And voila, it goes like that. So that is my hose routing. And like I said, if you want to do it the way I did it, that's how you can do it. Now I use push lock hose. You can use braided, whatever you want. I recommend 3 feet. I talk about that in the instructions. If you have 3 feet of hose, you will have plenty. 2 feet would probably be minimum, and it'll give you some to mess up. But hey, that's it. Thanks. All right, so I've done this a couple of times. Actually, it was a bit of a shit show. So what I did was I did it 2 different ways. One, I connected all the lines with the pump and kind of tried to fill the line at the top and let it drain all the way through the pump. That didn't work out so well, but I was able to fill it. It just took a while. Then the second time, I did just the lines. I filled up the lines. This line is one, capped one in, filled it all the way up, moved it around, make sure it was good, bled a little bit out, then topped it off here. The point is, I got both the lines filled, emptied them up into my container, then I got the pump completely full. To get all that out, I end up using a 9-volt battery just to kind of jump it, and then I pumped it all out from the outlet as much as I could. There's probably still a little bit in there, but that is what I ended up with. I'm calling that 3 ounces. It's a little bit, quite a bit above the 50 milliliter line, which shakes out to about 1.7 ounce. So it's a bit above that. I'm going to call that 3 ounces. I would say with any residual still left in here, it's still under 4 ounces. I did blow it out with my air compressor, and that's what I got. So I would say 3 to 4 ounces is what 6AN line and a pump will add to your system. I am using Royal Purple, not a debate. It's just what RPM wants me to use. Use whatever you want. So I'm not just showing you that so you can use it. Use whatever you want. Anyway, that's what you're going to add to your system. 3, no more than 4 ounces using 6AN. If you're using 8AN, use a little bit more. I'd call it 4 ounces to probably be good, maybe 4 and some change. You don't want to completely overfill it and have it blow out the vent, and you definitely don't want to underfill it. So use that information. Hopefully it's helpful. Thanks.